nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Today we'll go bird watching, tomorrow we'll catch toads. The next day we'll take photographs of bugs along the road. I never get the feeling that I'm in a rut. That's why I'm a nature nut. Well, I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.
Spring has sprung. In fact, it's been springing for some time now. Spring is not the sort of thing that just springs. It's a wonder that they even call it spring. I don't know. Anyway, spring is the best time of the year to go bird watching. We'll go bird watching today. But before we do, I thought I'd just update you on what's happening in the nature nook. Do you remember we had some praying mantis eggs in a little egg case in the refrigerator during the winter? Well, I took those out. They hatched. It was incredible. Hundreds of them pouring out of this egg case. I got some videotape of it. I was very pleased with that. And as soon as they hatched, they all started eating each other. They're little cannibals, little predators. So we had to keep each individual one separate. I had to give many of them away, and I only kept 3. But this one is doing very well in her little aquarium with a mossy bottom. And by the time she's full grown, she'll be 4 inches long, 10 centimeters. What a wonderfully interesting insect to keep as a pet and to observe. Well, what about the bird watching? If you want to know where to go bird watching, where the best spots are, nowadays in most major cities there is a bird watching hotline. Can you believe that? Wonderful. I've got a red phone here. Always call the hotline on a red phone is my rule. And around here the hotline is 433-BIRD. That spells bird. Clever, huh? Well, I'll just check out my spotting scope while we're listening here.
Thank you for calling the Northern Alberta Bird Hotline. The last week of May and the first 2 weeks of June is prime time birding in central Alberta. Many observers on the weekend reported 80 to 100 species of birds in a day at places like Beaverhill Lake. 18 species of shorebirds were reported on the weekend out at the lake, including whimbrel, lesser golden.
Thank you so much. Very, very good. Sorry I didn't listen to the whole thing. That sounds like Beaverhill Lake is the place to be. So let's go out to Beaverhill Lake, see what we can see in the way of rare birds. In order to get to Beaverhill Lake, you have to pass through the town of Towfield. That's just one of the delightful spots that we'll see on today's expedition in search of spring birds. And you know what they say in Towfield? Come share our viewpoint. I thought that was a bit pushy of those 1,620 people who live in Towfield when I first read this sign. And then I realized what they mean is the viewpoint down by the lake. That'll be the next spot on our expedition. Welcome to Francis Viewpoint. Francis, welcome. The rest of you can all go home. Ha! Who is Francis anyway? Actually, this isn't the viewpoint. The viewpoint is way down there. That is Beaverhill Lake. Actually, just a gigantic, shallow, muddy prairie slough filled with water plants and water bugs, a fantastic place for birds. There are no cottages, no cabins on this lake. No one ever goes swimming in the lake. No one ever takes a boat on the lake, and there are no fish to be caught in the lake. But for the birds, this is paradise. Oh, hey. Beaverhill Lake, as you can see, is surrounded by farmland, cropland, pasture land. And when the birds aren't down at the lake feeding there, they're often out in the fields, feeding on grain, feeding on bugs, that sort of thing. This is what bird people call a staging area for these migrating spring birds, especially the geese and the ducks. Staging area, it sounds like they should be putting on little skits for one another, but that's not what it means at all. It means this is a place where they rest, fatten up, and get ready for the last leg of their migration, way up to the Arctic tundra. Now, of course, not all these birds are going to migrate that far, but a large number of the ducks and the geese, they're on their way up to the tundra. They have to be there by about June 15th, and that's a long way, so they have to put on some weight. They have to psych themselves up, get ready for that, and when they get there, who knows, there might be snow on the ground. They might have to just turn around and come on back down south. It's a tough life for these birds, serious business. This is the blind. You know, in Europe they call them hides, because after all, it's not a place where you go blind, it's a place where you hide from birds. Much better name. Inside, the blind is just a one-room shack with no glass in the windows. Okay, well, let's have a look. This is serious bird watching, and one of the things about serious bird watching that you might not anticipate is that the birds are way, way far away a lot of the time. In fact, if my suspicions are right, here we are in a world-famous bird-watching place, and I can only see one bird out there. These things happen. Just because it's a great bird-watching spot doesn't mean it's going to be full of birds every minute of every day. Now, it's too reddish to be a willet, and it's too long-legged to be a dowitcher, and I think the bill turns upward a bit, out toward the tip. That would make it a godwit. And I think I see a little bit of white near the base of the tail, so I don't think it's a marbled godwit. It could be a Hudsonian godwit, but man, I'm not going to put it on my checklist yet. It's okay to say, I don't know what kind of bird that is, from time to time. And, oh, hey, look at that. There's another, that one will be easier. That one's much closer in. Yes, indeed. That bird has an upturned bill. Upturned bill means godwit, and that one is almost entirely brown. That's a Hudsonian, no, pardon me, that one is a marbled godwit, or a garbled mudwit. That's what I like to call them. And that's a bird that breeds right here at Beaverhill Lake. The other one may be a Hudsonian godwit. Hey, pardon me if I made a mistake. These are not that powerful binoculars. Let me show you what I'm thinking here so that I don't completely confuse you. The marbled godwit, a completely brownish bird with an upturned red and black bill. The Hudsonian godwit looks much the same, but it has a little bit of white near the base of the tail. That's bird watching. When making tricky identifications, try comparing 2 or more field guides. This is the closest campground to Beaverhill Lake. If I wanted the full outdoor experience, this is where I'd stay, nestled between the almost stagnant waters of the Amisk Creek and the lovely industrial sounds of Highway 14 and the main line of the Canadian National Railroad. There are so many campgrounds just like this one in this world, it kind of makes you wonder. Many sorts of birds, and especially water birds, are often so far away that you need something a little bit more powerful than a pair of binoculars in order to see them well. That's why most bird watchers eventually wind up with a spotting scope as well as binoculars. And a spotting scope is basically nothing more than a small telescope that magnifies the image from between 10 and 60 times. What that means, of course, is that the image is 10 to 60 times longer, not that it covers 10 to 60 times more area in your field of view. Well, there are many different types of spotting scopes available. I chose this one just because it's lightweight. It magnifies about 22 times, which is plenty, and it's also waterproof. I dropped it once in the Pacific Ocean, took it back to the hotel, rinsed it off. It's fine. Very shallow part of the Pacific Ocean, I might add. It only has one working moving part, and that's this ring here, the focus ring. Basically, you just look through it and turn this ring until the image is in focus. That's all there is to it. You'll want to mount your spotting scope on a tripod as well, because it's very hard to hold them steady otherwise. And here I just use a tripod that was intended for use with a video camera because the movements of these tripods are much more smooth and fluid than the movements of tripods that are intended for still cameras. This scope, by the way, cost about $400, but if that makes you nervous, let me show you the first spotting scope that I bought in 1976. This thing cost me $39.50. You should be able to find one at a garage sale or in somebody's attic or at a secondhand store for about $5 now, and it's a perfectly good scope. It has a very nice, crisp field of view, and the main difference between this one and the other one is that this one has what's called long eye relief, a very puzzling term. It doesn't mean relief for long eyes. It means that those of us who wear glasses can keep our glasses on when we look through the scope, because you can hold your eye a fair distance away from the eyepiece and still see the full field of vision. That's what long eye relief means. The eye relief is long. Probably short for long eyelash relief, so you're not always bending your eyelashes. Maybe. You find the greatest places when you're bird watching. Look at this, the village of Riley, where they live the life of Riley. I just had to show you this sign. What is the life of Riley anyway? Who is Riley? Is this Riley? Good question. Oh, hey, look at that. Look at that. That's a broad-winged, long-tailed hawk that would make an accipiter, and that's a Cooper's hawk. All right, nice. Good look at a Cooper's hawk? That's got to be a good omen. Let's head on to Mundair Beach.
Watching on the beach, oh baby, I'm always out of reach. Or maybe I'm crazy, but I'm having a heck of a good time. I got my field guide and my spotting scope, my summer hat and my mosquito dope. Or maybe I'm crazy, but I hope I'm gonna find me a rare bird today. Lovers love the sandpiper's pipe. The list is way longer than it was last night. I'm scanning those flocks, I hope I might find a ruff, a Dunlin, or a Wilson snipe. Or the Dowitch, will it or not, those surfbirds turn stone phalarops. The peeps keep peeping and the birding's hot. Just one more species and I'm over the top. Oh, bird watching on the beach, oh baby, they're always out of reach. Or maybe I'm crazy, but I'm having a heck of a good time. I got my field guide and my spotting scope, my summer hat and my mosquito dope. Or maybe I'm crazy, but I hope I'm gonna find me a rare bird today. Through thick and thin, through fog and haze, I'm scanning for those Eurasian strays. At every bird I intently gaze, hoping that one's gonna make my day. It's a birding obsession that I got, a hobby gone wild, like it or not. At least I'm not alone. Hey, I thought I saw a buff-breasted sandpiper behind that rock. Whoa, bird watching on the beach, oh baby, they're always out of reach. Or maybe I'm crazy, but I'm having a heck of a good time. I got my field guides and my spotting scope, my summer hat and my mosquito dope. Or maybe I'm crazy, but I hope I'm gonna find me a rare bird today. Or maybe I'm crazy, but I hope I'm gonna find me a rare bird today.
Here we are at Mundair Beach, Beaverhill Lake National Nature Viewpoint. A million years from now, archaeologists of the future will dig it up and they'll think this was the last place on Earth you could actually see nature. This place is so good for birds, all kidding aside. A few days ago I saw a peregrine falcon here. My friend Terry once found a Sabine's gull. That's a very rare kind of gull here. And the birding hotline last week reported a Eurasian widgeon, if you can imagine anything as exciting as that, just to name a few. So our odds are very good. If we're going to find something rare and wonderful, this is probably where we're going to find it. Well, Mundare Beach is turning into Mundane Beach today. Not many more birds here than we saw at the Francis viewpoint. But there are a few shorebirds here. And let's start with, there's one that's fairly easy to identify. That's the spotted sandpiper, and you can tell because his tail goes up and down like that. And over to one side is a willet. A large grayish shorebird with a long straight bill and dark legs. A willet. And there's a single snow goose out there as well. Just one. You know, a couple of weeks ago there were tens of thousands of snow geese here, and they're probably still around somewhere. And right there, they just came in, a small flock of shorebirds in the group that we call peeps. And we call them peeps because they're really hard to identify. I don't know, maybe there's some Baird's sandpipers or might be one semi-palmated, or perhaps those are pectorals. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not even going to tell you what kind of peeps those are. And that's okay, because almost nobody can tell peeps apart species for species all the time. Hey, you can't be good at everything.
It's easier to use a spotting scope than to get close to most water birds.
Oh man, look at that. There's peregrine falcon coming in. They hunt along the shoreline here. Didn't go for those he's sure scared those shorebirds. And he's coming along really low, trying a sneak attack. And yow! Ooh! He just about got that shoveler. Do you see that? Excellent! A rare bird, Beaverhill Lake, Mundare Beach pans out after all. First rate. That's bird watching.
Try not to disturb the birds you are watching. They need time to rest, to feed, and to go about their business.
One of the best ways to become a better bird watcher is to spend time with people who are really good at it. Let me tell you about the most inspiring bird watcher I've ever had the pleasure of being in the field with, a fellow named Kari Vepsalainen. Now, Kari is from Finland, and he came to visit Canada for about a year or so not long ago. The guy never went anywhere without his binoculars, and every single bird, even the most common birds, he'd look at them so carefully. He'd see a robin, and he'd say, okay, why do I know that's a robin? It's got a red breast, but why? Perhaps it's a Say's phoebe, perhaps it's a peculiar varied thrush, and he would identify every bird so carefully. Even though he was Finnish, he knew that the best way to approach bird watching was to think like a beginner. You get it? Finnish, beginner? What a terrible joke. Another great idea that Kari had was to lie out on your front lawn and just look straight up. See what flies by. You know, he once saw a Pacific loon this way, right in the middle of the city. Can you believe that? I told this story to a friend of mine. He tried it. He saw a peregrine falcon. So far, I'm just seeing blue sky and a few clouds. But I'm hopeful. And let me show you something else. Bird watchers not only want to know what type of birds they're seeing, they also want to know how many birds they're seeing. And it's tricky to estimate the number of birds in a flock. This is something I learned from Kari. Take a picture of a flock of birds, not a bird of flocks, a flock of birds. This is just a sketch of a flock of birds. And then guess how many are in it. Then go back and count them and see how well you did. What's your guess? The answer? 49. You can do it with anything. You could guess how many grass blades there are in this lawn, and then you could go back and count them and see how you did. You can have pictures of flocks of birds, and it's a great party game for when you have your bird watching friends over, especially, you know, near the end of the party when you want everybody to go home. Great idea. Anyway, I learned so much from you, Kari. Here's my tribute to you, Kari Vepselainen, the great bird watcher.
The birding ethic. Treat the land, the birds, and all those other people with respect.
Okay, well, let's summarize our accomplishments. You know, to some people, bird watching is a sport. The object is to see as many birds as possible in a short period of time or in a particular place or in a lifetime, whatever. To other people, bird watching is a kind of a science. Bird watchers sometimes consider themselves amateur ornithologists. Ornitho meaning bird, and ologist meaning them what studies birds. And for me, it's a little bit of both, and a little bit of neither. I just do it because I enjoy it. I do it because I really like watching birds. And one of the things that I find really helps is to keep records of what you've seen, to keep checklists, to keep field notes. Some people don't like doing it, but I like doing it because after all, I mean, you watch birds long enough, you can't remember every bird you've seen. I've seen over 500 species of birds, and, you know, to be honest with you, in bird watching circles, that's not necessarily that many species of birds. You can't remember 500 species of birds, but we can write down what we saw today. So let's quickly go through a checklist of the birds that we saw at Beaverhill Lake. I have before me the Beaverhill Lake Site Records short form. So let's have a look. Snow goose at Mundair Beach, Canada goose, mallard duck, the northern shoveler, another sort of duck, American widgeon, the lesser scaup, ruddy duck, Cooper's hawk. Remember, we saw that by the Riley town sign. We were living the life of Riley at the time. The peregrine falcon, definitely the best and the rarest bird that we saw today. Nice sighting. American coot, willet, spotted sandpiper. Remember, the tail went up and down. The Hudsonian godwit. I'm pretty sure that was a Hudsonian godwit now. A marbled godwit. And Baird sandpiper, pretty well for sure as well. Had a look at the videotape when we got it back, and I'm pretty sure that was a Baird sandpiper. And I'm going to put a question mark beside semi-palmated sandpiper and least sandpiper, those other peeps that were out there. I don't know which one it was for sure, but a question mark's okay. There's no shame to that. How about the ring-billed gull, black-billed magpie, Savannah sparrow, red-winged blackbird, yellow-headed blackbird, and brown-headed cowbird? We probably could have seen more, but on the other hand, we didn't do that badly. So until next time, happy bird watching. I'm a nature nut, and I hope you are too. Bye for now.
Well, I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Same time each and every week, uncensored and uncut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.